as a
Steven Spielberg, the director of iconic film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, says UFOs could be us from 500,000 years in the future coming back as time traveler anthropologists. So he filmed Jurassic Park, which is the Chinese scientist and Mossad, Epstein, Gates, Fauci, United Wuhan, China controlled the conversation about Jurassic Park gray parasymbiote, not alien humanoid from the future. Yes, humanoid from the future. See, he has already covered this in very explicit macro prop that it presents half logic on purpose about a whole logic conversation that you would otherwise form about so much a topic if it weren't presented narratively to you in film. So the little plushy toy in E.T. is a little gray devolved humanoid. At the end of AI, there's a transhumanist ideal little robot thing that isn't a human. They're all dead, with a teddy bear, and a gray parasymbiotic devolved humanoid at the end of time, you know, that's just like a puppet for the AI, essentially. And that's self-reflexively hypnotized almost romantically, as if it's the case, you know, with puppy dog eyes. Haley Joel Osment's robot boy greets the not alien. And so when Steven Spielberg goes, well, maybe
curious about UFOs or UAPs,
yes,
that there's something going on that we're really not being made that's not being disclosed to us.
Senators who have been briefed on this, and I don't...
This jackass. So remember during COVID, Mossad, Epstein, Gates, Fauci, United Wuhan, China, where they cover up all your mouth holes and pass medical misinformation at speed across all communications channels? Aren't they like to rewrite and get out ahead of, as they're generally down chain, gray directive, the democratic centrifuge in the United States politically, generalistically? Their gray directive, fake empathy out front, gray directive out back.
I mean just these latest balloon-ish incidents. Senators who've been briefed on this have said, there are things the American people deserve to know, and the quote I love is, and they're ready to learn.
The most optimistic thing
So why don't you just tell them a full logic thing in 30 minutes to an hour, as I have? It's basic logic about Earth history that you can formulate without even being, you know, a Promethean descended genetic like myself with, I don't know, what do they call that? Genetic foundational complex trace memories available at the, you know, the explicit tune, and not so much a kind of fuzzy subconscious collective thing imposed in the morphogenetic available memory chain, if that makes sense. So I just kind of know. My father worked for Bell Labs, and I was born in Huntsville, Alabama. My birth date is 11386. And if you look on the cover of Ziggy Stardust, K West, any questions? So I've detailed to you actual full logic Earth history. Time is history's memory, which is, you know, as history was modulated, the Greys washed in the 1930s forward with their power and influence, but also backward, conveniently washing a shadow. killing off the antediluvian period presence of multifacetous, bipedal, highly tech evolved, but miners and not militarily capable, so murdered, killed. They were mining cinnabar, what begets mercury, on Mars, and living on Earth, where they also mine cinnabar too, because it's here too. And the Jurassic period, dinosaurs in general, all of that. Say Jurassic because Jurassic Park. Genetic interoperability, scale experiments outside of the conservation of energy, expectation of form fruition. So 65-ton animal simply does not exist without synthesis having created it, period. I'm sorry. And Ford, not due to continental drift, you have very far back in the evolutionary chain a monkey, for some reason still alive, side by side as forwardly evolved man, right? So we didn't come from here, right? We didn't go abracadabra, born from Bible thing Jesus stuff, and or a science thing Big Bang stuff. Neither one of those, right? So we're descended from Promethean genetics. Those that aren't regen synthetic processed through great processing in the Holocaust, where they were fractioned soul bodies into an ectoplasmic chamber, stole genetic aesthetics because it's very hard to manufacture millions of variant aesthetics, place that genetic aesthetic onto a synthoid centrifuge, as they've been practicing with genetics outside of time for 65 million years or so far, so they're pretty good at it. And they took that refractioned and homogenized soul body, that otherwise that ethereous body around your pineal gland that injects novelistic thought into the otherwise refraction concurrence, its conservation of energy, complex autonomic process, the gray matter brain without a functional pineal ethereous body phased and injecting novelistic thought into the river of. So,
I feel about these things that we're seeing in the skies, or the Army and Navy and Air Force are recording on their gun cameras, is that what if they're not from an advanced civilization 300 million light years?
What if?
What if it's...
What if? He's supposing now. He's just worked on a film. I think he did a full disclosure and sent it directly to a lot of, jackass, 2 ways of Kevin Bacon. Absolutely no full logic is on the table and has been. And they have no air support. This is the most important thing. These gray prop jackasses, that pass medical misinformation at speed across all communications channels and murdered over the age of 65-year-olds with pre-existing conditions. Doing the vaccine dance, Mr. Colbert, right across from Spielberg, right? Are terrorists, in my opinion. And there's nothing more egregious than to walk back and or to try to control because you want to be the wellspring of alien disclosure. It's already occurred in 2018, you fucking jackass. It occurred explicitly from a government official in 2018. Why is your film called Disclosure Day interesting? Why do we care about your thoughts on this topic at all? That's a good question. Because it's imposed at you, this person's opinion about the macro topic of aliens, which aren't really. And please look at how elaborately explicit and helpful to satire I used it, Jurassic Park, in the flow motion of language in Time as It Is History's Memory, as it's very good to draw on if you have full macro knowledge, and you can see that it's almost good satire to form full macro logic, but it falls short at very pointed all sorts of places that disallows forming proper logics on purpose. This. So Spielberg, let's talk about. He takes you on an adventure to the far reaches of the Bible thing, and that's science stuff. The Holy Grail, a cup, a magical cup. Wow. The Ark of the Covenant, a magical box thing. And also Indiana Jones, aliens too. So he already, has put his foot into this insofar as you can't make those type of assertions of, like, say, putting a bunch of gray parasymbiotes inside of a pyramid Aztecian without necessarily knowing the meaning of doing that explicitly. And all vectors of logic. You just don't do that. I'm just telling you. So, it's disgusting because this is Hollywood, right? Because I have time out of mind enjoyed the experience of the passage of time of many Spielberg films, I remember. But the devil's in the details, isn't it?
The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations present Orson Welles and the Mercury
So Spielberg
Theater on the
directs
Air
the
in
War of the Worlds
by
with
H.G.
Tom
Wells.
Cruise in it. It's a pointed property. Orson Welles, 1938, huh? Interesting. So, processing and print of Region has already started to occur by 1938. 1936 Olympics has already occurred.
Orson Welles.
We know
And
now
region
that in the
influx
early years
increases
of the 20th century, this world was being watched
as the
closely
40s
by
and 50s march on,
intelligences greater than
as they're
man,
printed.
yet as mortal as his own. We know now that as human beings busied themselves about their various concerns,
So Spielberg wouldn't
they
take
were
on this
scrutinized
property.
and studied,
He's a high-rotating macro
perhaps almost as narrowly
propagandist.
as a man with a microscope
What is this
might scrutinize
broadcast
the
that
friendly
caused some
creatures
people to jump out of
form
windows?
and multiply in a drop of water.
It's called.
With infinite complacence, people
It's not
went
even.
to and fro
You have
fears about their
predictive
little
propaganda that precedes an
serene in the
event
assurance
to
of their
prime
dominion over this
psychology
small,
to receive it in a
spinning
specific
fragment of solar
way,
driftwood,
to interpret it
which
as
by
is
chance or
desired.
design,
That's one thing.
man has inherited
You
out
have
of the dark
post-dictive
mystery of time
propaganda
and
that
space.
comes out after an event
Yet across an
to,
immense
in
ethereal
hindsight,
gulf,
wrap up the
minds that are to our mind
ends as
ours
it's
as the
like to
beasts
be
in the
in the
intellect,
seeding that in the collective
vast,
conscience.
cool and
But this is
unsympathetic,
what? This is different.
regarded this earth with
This is
envious
happening
eyes.
simultaneously
and
when
surely
a
through their
literal
plans against
invasion
us.
is occurring.
In the 39th
Orson Welles is a Grey Lodge secret handshake. And we'll cut to
Victims? Don't be melodramatic. Sit down, man. Would you really feel any pity if one of those dots stopped moving forever? If I offered you 20,000 pounds for every dot that stopped, would you really, old man, tell me to keep my money? Or would you calculate how many dots you
The
could
Grey
afford?
Lodges were international. Naziatic Grey Lodges.
Oh, well, you can save money nowadays.
A lot of good your money will do you in jail.
That jail's in another zone.
More or less knowing, you know,
Yes.
as things are, you know, as power sees
Besides you.
itself in a hierarchical fashion. Some people know, some people don't. But they were the handlers of the Region Injects International, as they were.
Pretty easy.
Identity politics rolled on to wash over their influx.
Don't think they'd look for a bullet wound after you hit that
And let's
ground.
say you live in Kansas, right? Or you live in like Minnesota, right? How hard is it to bring an entire new species of humanoid, practically, into the biome without you even fucking knowing it? And history washes over. It's hard to say when it starts this thing exists, but it is here, and there's where it necessarily comes from, sure, and then where all the saturation, onslaught, and identity politics, where are all these numbers coming from? Well, it's great processing from World War II and slowly injected, and did not exist before the 1930s. So, but like I said, so when Spielberg approaches aliens, listen very closely to his language. This is part of the propaganda.
As a person that makes movies and uses his imagination, and also as a person that is insatiably curious about UFOs or UAPs,
Yes.
that there's something going on that we're really not being made that's not being disclosed to us.
Senators who have been briefed on
So the little aliens in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, what are they? Greys. The alien at the end of AI. It's gray. It's a parasymbiotic, transhumanist ideal. Jurassic Park, what is it an explanation for? Gray Earth, genetic tampering since 65 million years BC, where they went back before any presence of highly evolved bipedal with technology on Earth, and played around with genetic interoperability scale, immolated it, then went back to history. And like I said, the antediluvian period, those people were miners, and this is like a distant outpost. So think about the vast distances of space, right? Wherever they come from, many light years away. So, it takes a while when the Greys go back and destroy them, for no comms having been sent for so long, for someone to come calling, given the nature of communications in the vast distances of space. But, wouldn't you know, if you said any of this proper full logic at any point in Grey-controlled history, actually, you would have been surgically deleted from reality. All your works, everything you said, everything you did, you don't fucking exist. And or wackoed and wrapped off neatly. So what's different now? Well, like 2017, Oumuamua, a large cylindrical craft, enters the solar system. It slows down. It's not a, something else besides a craft, because it slows down. Not without any explanation based upon the gravitational fields available, and then takes off again. So, gray influence paradigm has been around for a long period of time, and they print regen as they are no longer life. So they need proxy life to experience in interfacing with life the parasymbiotic divide of time, male-female, transsexual smush. Why are there so many over tonnage AI and prismatic data systems that establish bulk collection, foundational psychologies, and refracted it? Because you have to establish foundational psychology before you do that. And then in the future, when you get this refraction in the past on purpose, the vantage is one thing, where before you had two things. And so the paradox is then, in logic, you think, why are they trying to intentionally devolve the host organism they require to experience through proxy the experience of life? That's a good question. That's what happens when you put AI on communication systems and run real-time filtration and automated modulation of all information in mind to one end that is not organic and for control schema, i.e. to make complexly autonomic and with predictable, sort of analysis, expectancy of motion, emotion, and mind output, and generalistically to one end that is an exponential elliptical curve of entropy across the surface manifold of the humanoid genetic plus time. You get de-evolution very basically, and intentional refraction of sexuality as on the lower layers of software considering this, refracting psychology using sexual trauma-based mind control and or pleasure-based coupling to traditional, say, suggested service of fake analytics or an AI-served false equivalency, space-time relative, if you show in succession and repeat, equivalency not alike, but shown in space-time together, yes, are equivalent, the subconscious assumes if you doom scroll all day long, especially if you are a region doom scrolling with an IQ that is essentially, if we compare what actual intellect is, it's 0.6286 to 1.04 in novelistic potential output to environment outside of conservation of energy generalistically. So you might notice the region is complexly autonomic and way below the waterline of conservation, but also athletically increased. Bolt runs a 9.58 in 2009. Owens runs a 9.33 flat in 1936. That's the parasymbiotic divide, where at any time the synthoid can run within reason pretty much any time it wants to. Now, Bolt is in the same lane as Owens, and he's wearing 656 on his back. When you divide 56 by 6, you get 9.3 flat, and there's the rub. Also, Owens is wearing 733 on his back. Prometheon descended genetic harmonic exutation of potential novelistic effect upon environment by ethereous body chaos choice to environment is 22/7 fluid dynamic, generalistically in an unaffected, unprocessed Prometheon genetic. And you might notice the region is that looks like the universal gravitational constant that we've taken 3/5 to 1 ratio in Naziatic under the guise of eugenics lined up. Oh, honey, look out, run a big, strong black guy just like we saw at the Olympic show pony for the new model genetic man. And they're all there happy-dappy, but at some point it's a gun at the back. It starts a lovey-dovey and idealism thing. When you get inside, though, the processing, steel of ethereous body, pooling, homogenization, taking 3/5 to 1 ratio, as that's the complex autonomic on purpose, we still need animation in the synthoid body, but we don't want it to have novelistic expectancy in behavior output. We want it to behave complexly autonomically and at the behest of, say, in the future when we put a cell phone in its hand, automated system suggestion, which it can't form logic tuples against. We saw blind unilateral compliance to unnecessary healthcare mandates during COVID-19, and the group that is only 15% of the populace in the United States, just like the Nazis, used as a attack tool against the entire populace to strong-armedly engineer those mandates' acceptance. So, yeah. So when you hear Samuel L. Jackson on the loudspeaker before they all enter that egg scene in Jurassic Park,
A reminder, the boat for the mainland leaving at 1900 hours. All personnel be at the dock no later than 1845. There's no concessions.
so Richard Attenborough represents the Grey Lodge esoteric of the British origin. What is obsessed historically with the ancient Chinese secret, the Silk Road, what is it? And what is the ancient Chinese secret? Well, the Asiatic gene that is aesthetical homogeny on the face, very obviously, but social media tells you that that's normal, is not mongoloidal. It's not mongoloidal, it's gray injected, and time out of mind for the longest time that's been the case. So often when you make something complexly autonomic, where before it was forming, cultural identity, it no longer forward forms cultural identity and stops. And so you have traditional Chinese culture, and then attention gravitation addiction we can see with the Hollywood, China, Hollywood sort of, thing stuff as a, Grauman's Chinese theater and all the stars are on the ground there, what is it? So first enters humanity, Laura Dern and Sam Neill.
It's turning the X.
The robot arm represents AI.
Okay. Oh, perfect.
Jeff Goldblum represents the Semitic before processing in Germany.
I'd hope they'd hatch before.
He's wearing all black leather and very swarthy with his sexuality towards Laura Dern very often. It's very pointed. That's the parasymbiotic divide.
I had to go to the boat.
Henry, why didn't you tell me? I insist on being here. I'm their boat.
And they slowly, humanity, Richard Attenborough, Laura Dern, and Sam Neill are slowly surrounded by and encapsulated by Mossad, Epstein, Gates, Fauci, Unites, Wuhan, China, the Jews and the Chinese controlling the conversation about Jurassic Park, Earth. One of those is Steven Spielberg.
Come on. Come on, Mr. One. Come on.
The director of this film, who knows all facets of macro logic, is not confused and should at no point say, well, maybe this, well, I don't know, or give you half logic at any point, and especially not make all these films with gray, not aliens in them that are so articulately expressive of many multifaceted aspects of macro full earth gray logic, but are imposing half logics on purpose to control the conversation about gray earth macro logic.
Come on then. Come on then. Very good. Push. Push. Very good. Push.
So what came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, neither. It's a paradox. It was birthed within the chalice of a universe that isn't. So, it has to be synthetic, very basically. Anyways, so, to speak for why I can shout at the wind and walk around with my thumb up my ass everywhere, just kind of doing what I want to, and nothing happened to me. For, I don't know, I've been doing this for a while. Before, if you said this during when grays were actually here in the skies and not hiding from whomever, daddy that showed from Homeworld of the miners that were here during the antediluvian period. So when you see these propagandists like Spielberg, you see all these verified users that like murdered your grandma and grandpa and tell jokes at you, make films at you and not for you, and all this weirdo toxic environment of, you work around all these regions and everything. You just keep in mind that it's been long formed to seed in the plurad of region and gray Asiatic genetic, and so it takes as well long form time to roll it off, regardless of the power behind the plurad on the ground not being there anymore, if that makes sense. So that makes a lot of these personated people very fucking nervous when you say that. And they don't do anything when you say it. That's the very point. Why? Because they have no muscle anymore. They're just hot air in the region, inject populace, and the Asiatic, but there's 7 billion people. Right? It wasn't an over-tonnage takeover. It wasn't, so systemic that there's not a reactionary wave of that moots any sort of potentiality and sort of the plurad doing something, nonsensical and at scale in reaction to the grays being gone, as a desperation move or something. But so keep that in mind. It's the Gigas Codex. Little devil. I'm a little devil. And he's a little gray creature. And technologically, extremely inferior to the upper Fermi filter civilizations that were here. They weren't armed, though, military, industrial in any way. They were miners. I mean, there's some, but not for an enormous onslaught of militarily inclined, UFOs from the future to dissolve them from history and impose fire world on you. The miners were here mining cinnabar. Mercury begets anti-gravity propulsion via charged mercury and reactor cold and clean technology. So that's what they were mining on Mars, living on Earth, mining a little bit here too. You live here though because it's 70% water. But the point of this additional thing is Greys aren't around anymore. I mean, they're probably hiding in anti-de Sitter space somewhere, like little fungus things. So that was the scary monster in the 322 Grey Lodge that held directive and sway over the largest military power on the face of the earth. Is this little gray creature that isn't even an alien, but presented itself as an alien to that power complex. Time out of mind. Right? Some people, I guess, forming logic that not necessarily. And I guess that winky eye, where does it come from? You have many layers of changing channels. It's an acquiescence to the imposition of silence in content outputs, and to have a specific type of opinion about content generalistically that isn't counterintuitive to desired narrative data flow. If that makes sense. So those are your acceptable verified celebrities, and that was the vetting protocol, not necessarily identity. So those people that were inspected at all the way down to the base of psychology using hyper advanced artificial intelligence in the vetting process, those that passed as being completely innocuous and ineffectual as individuals, i.e. can't form cognitive dissonant tuples and aren't interested in doing that and talking to anyone, guess what? They're famous now. Those are your celebs. They happen to be able to sing, dance, and act by happenstance. The point of this is they're the little devil in the Giz Codex. They're not a, Goliath or something. They don't have any air support. They're just talking out of their ass, and also trying to control the conversation about, what was their the gray influence presence that provided them power to be in such so much the way they are, famous, powerful, and rich.